always felt like the book community was a pretty niche community, and I guess it's still true about booktube, even though nowadays we have booktubers like Jack Edwards or Ellie Pham, which I count as a booktuber, even though I know she didn't start on booktube, but now she makes bookish videos, so I count her. Obviously, they're very big booktubers, but in general, I still feel like the bookish community is still a pretty niche community on booktube. However, during the pandemic, we saw the rise of TikTok in general, and more specifically Booktok, with bookish creators who make bookish content. And one of the most prominent subcategories on Booktok is what I would call the romance girlies. And I feel like in general, they are the people that people think about when they think about Booktok. They think about the booktokers who read specifically romance. Now, I think people have a tendency to shit on Booktok, and more specifically on romance Booktok, which I feel like it's a low-hanging fruit, because it is no secret that in history women have been constantly ridiculized for reading romance books. There is something about women liking romance that really doesn't, that a lot of people for some reason don't like, and they get constantly criticized for. And there is so many things that could be said about that specifically, but I'm not gonna talk about that here today. I just wanted to mention it because I do feel like it is an unfair thing that happens, and I wanted to add it as a disclaimer because this video is not intended to basically add to the constant pile-on Booktok, but I think there are certain things that need to be addressed, because while yes, booktokers are a lot of the times unfairly criticized, there are also some times where there are people on Booktok that give it a bad name and they do things that need to be criticized, and that's what I'm here for, apparently. I'm here to criticize them. Hi. I'm just a random person on the internet, but I have a lot of opinions, so... Because while I think it's all fun and games to read your favorite romance books, to thirst after your fictional daddies, I can't believe I just said that, but yes, you know, it's fine to thirst after fictional characters. When it comes to real people, that's where it can become a little more tricky, and it did become tricky, and that is why we're here today, because there are certain situations that happened on Booktok that I feel like needs to be talked about. You probably know what I'm going to talk about, the first situation. I'm not going to go into too many details on it because I feel like it's been talked over so much on the internet, so much so that it actually left the book community, so that's how you know that it became big. And I'm talking obviously about the Kraken situation. If you don't know what the Kraken situation was, basically on Booktok there is this group of people who specifically like hockey romances, which, like the name suggests, are basically romance books that feature hockey players. The thing is, apparently, from what I gathered from the situation, is that there was this one hockey player on the Kraken team who has traits of one of the love interests in one of the hockey romance books that blew up on TikTok. So a lot of these TikTok girlies started leaving comments on the Kraken team's Instagrams and on the guys' Instagrams thirsting after him, which at first it was fine because apparently at first they all seemed in on the joke, the guy, the wife, and the Kraken team. They all, you know, it was all an inside joke, which again, that's totally fine. Personally, some of the jokes that were made about this guy, I'm not gonna lie, I would never make them, but also that's not my type of humor, and that's also something that is fine. As long as everyone who is involved in the joke is fine with it, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, they were making jokes about how attractive he was, they were leaving comments saying crack my back, you know, because the name of the team, the Krakens, crack my back, whatever. They started leaving those types of comments on their Instagram, and again, like I said, everyone was in on the joke, so everything was fine. But everything took a turn when the wife expressed on Instagram that she was starting to feel uncomfortable by all of the comments that were being made about her husband. So basically the wife asked everyone to stop, and instead of reacting, I feel like normal people would have reacted, which is to be like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, we didn't mean to take it so far, we didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, like we're gonna stop, blah blah blah. No, what they decided to do was, as the internet does, they decided to clown her and try to rile her up even more by basically leaving hundreds and hundreds of comments saying that I want your husband to crack my back, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, which is very mature. That's the internet for you. And then her husband, the player that all the jokes were being made about, had to come out and defend his wife and basically also ask everyone to stop. And the team also made a public post asking everyone to stop because it was starting to make everyone uncomfortable. And again, instead of reacting like normal people, no, they decided to get even more mad and basically say that it was unfair, that they basically had tried to get Booktok clout by going along with the jokes, and that it wasn't fair for them to now come out and say that it made them uncomfortable. To that I say, that's the thing about consent. You can revoke it at any time. That's literally the point. You don't get to be mad at people for starting to be uncomfortable when things start crossing their boundaries. If you cross their boundaries, even if at first they were fine with it, the second that they tell you, hey, I'm not comfortable with this anymore, stop. And I can't believe that me and many other people on the internet had to come out and say that and had to explain that to people who are literally adults. You don't get to be mad at someone for being uncomfortable that you cross their boundaries. You don't get to do that. People are allowed to be uncomfortable with the jokes that you make, even if at first they were going along with it. The second they're not comfortable with it anymore, you stop. It's really that simple. And the fact that this situation wasn't that simple and that it escalated is frankly really wild to me. I don't understand. One of the main excuses that I saw them used was them trying to act like it was all the woman's fault, that it was all the wife's fault, that she was the only one who was uncomfortable with it because she was insecure in her relationship or in herself or blah, 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 blah. Like that's things that I saw. People say that she was insecure and that at first she went along with the joke because she felt like she had to, and then she started feeling insecure, so she was basically the one who put a stop to the joke. But again, that's not a good excuse, because even if that's the case, even if she wasn't fine with it anymore because she was jealous, it doesn't matter because you're still crossing her boundaries. She's allowed to be uncomfortable with people thirsting after her husband. She's allowed to feel like this is inappropriate and this is not something that I like and this is something that makes me uncomfortable. She's allowed to feel that way. And the fact that her husband had to come out and defend her and basically agree with her and ask again everyone to stop just shows that he's a good husband. He saw that something was bothering his wife, that he was crossing her boundaries, and he put a stop to it. That's what a good partner does. She's not at fault for being uncomfortable, but that's what these people try to make it seem like. And now the thing about this situation is that I fully believe that one of the main reasons why it escalated the way that it did was because it first came from the wife. If it had at first come from the team or from the husband himself, I feel like the reaction would have probably been a little bit different. But because it came from the wife, that was a problem. That wife is also a better person than I am, because personally, I feel like I would have been way more petty about this situation that she was, because I feel like she really handled it with grace. She was asking people very nicely, and that's what bothered me, or like surprised me even more about people's reaction, is that she wasn't even aggressive with it. She was very kindly asking people to stop, and the fact that they doubled down and tried to taunt her, I would have been, yeah, she's a much better person than I am, because I would have been more petty. I think that some of these women who were thirsting after the guy probably already had some animosity towards the wife because of jealousy, because that's how some people are. You know how people are. We even see that in fan culture when an attractive guy that a lot of people are a fan of, when he starts dating someone, some fans will react by being very aggressive towards that person. I mean, the main example that I can think of right now is Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez. I know that it's a bad example and it's a little old, but bear with me. When Justin Bieber started dating Selena Gomez, way back in time, there were a lot of his fans who started hating her because she was dating him. And I feel like this was probably a similar-ish situation where some of these women probably already had some ill feelings toward her just because of the fact that she's his wife. And so when she came out and was like, hey, can you stop making sexual jokes about my husband? They did not react well to it. They started finding any excuse to vilify her and villainize her, but in reality it was basically just jealousy. Because people are jealous bitches, especially the ones that see people have something that they want and that they don't have. You know, some people don't react well to that, and that's, I feel like that's basically partly what happened here. And so when that happened, when she asked them to stop, I feel like they basically saw it as an opportunity to disrespect her and her relationship and to diminish it. And that's what they did. And then when they saw him backing her and basically agreeing with her, it made them even more mad, because in their minds they were like, well, he was fine with the jokes at first, so obviously the reason he's not fine anymore is because of his wife, so she's the reason we can't have fun anymore. And that basically, again, made them hate her even more. So that situation was already pretty bad because it showed a clear lack of boundaries and a clear disregard for consent. But there is another situation that I saw happen recently on Twitter, because I'm actually not on TikTok. But I do see things that happen on TikTok because I'm on Twitter. So basically I see things there. And that's where I saw this situation that, in my opinion, is... I don't know if I would say that it's worse than the Kraken situation. Yeah, in some ways it is worse. It is worse. So the situation that I wanted to talk about, and that I really made this video for mostly, is this 16-year-old teenage boy who makes TikTok videos. I'm not aware of the specific kind of TikTok videos that he makes because I don't follow him. Like I said, I'm not on TikTok, but I know that he's 16, and I know that he has a motorbike, and that he makes TikTok videos with his helmet. Jesus Christ, this has been a long day. Yeah, he makes TikTok videos with his helmet, and apparently there is, again, this side of TikTok, of Booktok specifically, who have a thing with men with motorbikes, because I don't know, maybe there's a specific type of romance books that are specifically about bikers. I don't really know, because I'm not on TikTok. From what I understand, some Booktok people started leaving comments under one of his TikTok talking about books and just Booktok in general. And so he responded by making a TikTok basically being like what is Booktok, and holding the Hunger Games trilogy in his TikTok, because he's a 16-year-old boy. And so they started leaving a bunch of comments under his TikTok, making jokes about how he was so pure and innocent, and do we corrupt him with our nasty, spicy book recommendations, because I guess that's what Booktok is about. And actually there is one comment that specifically said, oh, babes, that's not, Booktok is not about those kinds of books, talking about the Hunger Games, so YA books, which, first of all, I would argue that Booktok is really about any type of books. Just because you are on a specific side of Booktok that is about spicy romance books, that doesn't mean that there is no side of Booktok that reads YA. It's just not the side that you're on, but... especially considering the fact that there are a lot of minors on TikTok, to imply that Booktok is all about spicy books, I feel like is not, first of all, it's not accurate, like I already mentioned, but it's also kind of harmful, because you are completely disregarding all of the very young people, all of the minors that there are on Booktok that do talk about books that interest them, which for the most part is YA books. Booktok is not just about adult books. And I feel like it's very reductive to say that. And to say that, obviously, under a minor's TikTok is even more disgusting. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt and think that he probably left those comments because they didn't know his age, because he did make this TikTok with a helmet on, so you can't see his face. Now, I want to make it clear that just because I say I'm leaving them the benefit of the doubt, that doesn't excuse this type of behavior. Because, like I said, there are a lot of minors on TikTok. It is an app that is filled with very young people. And as an adult on TikTok, you have to be mindful of that. You have to remember that. So when you interact with people on TikTok, it is your responsibility as an adult to make sure that you are not talking inappropriately with people that are very young, with people that are minors. While I don't think it is your responsibility to not make explicit or adult content because, well, there are minors on the app that might see it, I don't agree with that because, you know, it's up to the parents to be mindful of what their children are seeing on the internet. So I don't think it's your responsibility to make sure that minors don't interact with your content, but when you're the one going out of your way to interact with people, it is your responsibility, I feel like, to make sure that you are not interacting inappropriately with minors. Now, the thing is, while I'm talking about Booktok here specifically, because I feel like this is something that needs to be talked about, and this is something that I saw on Booktok specifically, I'm also aware that this is a phenomenon that is not specific to Booktok. This is actually pretty common on social media. As someone who has been on K-pop stan Twitter, I know that this type of behavior is also very common on this side of social media. I've seen many fans thirst after their favorite K-pop idol, but the same way that I think it's fine to thirst after your favorite fictional characters and your favorite actors, I also think it's fine to thirst after your favorite K-pop idols. The thing is, they don't see it, and that's why I think it's fine. But when it starts reaching the actual people, when it starts reaching them, I feel like it can become a problem. Again, if they're fine with it, that's fine. But the problem is, you can't really know that for sure unless you do it. And I feel like it's an inherently kind of a weird thing that is specific to social media to thirst after real people to their face. People you don't know, I mean. Because in real life, obviously, you would probably never say those types of things to people in real life that you don't know because it would be considered very quickly sexual harassment. But for some reason on social media, it's been, I hate this word, but it has been normalized to some extent. And I think it's very interesting and it's very specific to social media. And I think this phenomenon is tied to this attitude that people have on social media, which is to basically act like the people that they're talking about and that they're talking to are not real people and are almost like fictional characters. Obviously, when you interact with people on social media, logically, you know that you're talking to a real person. But I feel like because of the distance that there is, people forget that the person that they're talking to is a real person. And that's how you come to cross boundaries in that way. I mean, we see it all the time with online harassment and fights, the way they talk to each other, the way so many people have no problem telling people to off themselves, which is, definitely something that you wouldn't say to something in real life. I feel like most people wouldn't say that to people in real life. On social media, there is definitely this phenomenon where it almost doesn't matter because it's social media. Like I mentioned, this distance that you feel when you talk to people on social media is, I feel like, the main reason why this phenomenon happens. But I also feel like it's because of the lack of consequences. Because let's be real, when you say stuff on social media, when you harass people, there are not many consequences. And as a consequence to feeling like the people you're talking to on social media are not real and that nothing is really gonna happen to you, you have a clear lack of boundary that takes place on social media. People just do not care and cross boundaries left and right. And it's really alarming how common and normalized it's become. Again, I feel like also there's this attitude towards social media where, well, nothing is real on social media. You can just, leave the app. And it's true to some extent, but it never feels good to have people talking to you like that. It still has an impact on you. I think one of the specificities of these situations on Booktok is that because the majority of romance booktokers are women, I feel like there's this thing where, again, some women, because of the fact that they're women, they don't see what they do as sexual harassment, especially when, actually not even just when it's against men, even the way that they talk about other women sometimes could be felt like sexual harassment, but because they're women, and usually we attribute sexual harassment to men, because statistically, yes, men are mostly the perpetrators to that, and women are mostly the victims to that. There's this idea that, well, I'm a woman, so I can't be sexually harassing someone else. What I'm doing is not serious. It's just a joke. And that's just not how it works. If you cross people's boundaries, if you say things that are very sexual to people and they express that they're uncomfortable by it, that's sexual harassment. Just because you are a woman and you are most likely to be a victim of sexual harassment, that doesn't mean that you also can't be the perpetrator. All in all, I obviously don't think this is an issue that is specific to Booktok. Like I already said, I think this is something that is common on social media in general. And with how big Booktok became in the last few years, I feel like it's only natural that the more people there are in the community, the more chance there is to have a loud minority of weirdos that, you know, give your community a bad name. Because when there are a lot of people, obviously, if there are other people in the community, a minority of this big community is still gonna be a lot of people. So it's still gonna be noticeable. And I feel like this is what's happening with Booktok right now, is that there is a minority of people who are pretty loud and they give everyone a bad name because that's always what happens. And it's sad, but I feel like this is something that needs to be talked about because it is a problem. Just because it's just a minority of people doing that, that doesn't mean that we need to sweep it under the rug and not talk about it, because that's definitely a problem. The fact that it even came to the point where people starting being inappropriate with a minor, I feel like we need to be more mindful of the things that we say on the internet, of the way that we interact with people that we don't know on the internet, and also to be more mindful of the age of the people on the internet. Because just because you are an adult on the internet, you need to not assume that everyone else is. Anyways, this is the end of this video. This is the end of my rant. This is just something that I needed to talk about, because, you know, this is something that I've seen happen, and I don't think this is something that we should ignore. You know, as much as I love the book community, I feel like there are obviously bad parts of it, because there are bad apples everywhere, and we shouldn't just ignore them. We should definitely call them out when they cross the line, and people have definitely crossed the lines here. So yes, I just wanted to have this conversation, and yeah, that's all I have to say for today, and I hope you like this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.